We would like to extend our warm welcome and sincere thanks to all our customers, partners, and users who are interested in our solutions. Endpoint management and security is one of the main focus areas of ManageEngine. Let me introduce myself. My name is Danya Sundaran, and I'm a product specialist with ManageEngine. I take care of endpoint management products, including Desktop Central. I'm a seasoned technical support engineer, assisting customers in their implementation, consultation, and troubleshooting in case of challenges. In today's webinar, we will focus on endpoint management solutions, which has different portfolios and management and security. During today's session, we will be discussing Desktop Central Suite, which has management and security capabilities. Once again, welcome to Desktop Central training, focusing on how to tune your Desktop Central to adopt the current work from home scenario. Let's have a look at the training schedule. We are on week 2, which is software deployment. This is one of the modules of our endpoint management and security suite. We had patch management last week, and we are currently running on week 2 training. In case if you have missed our last training schedule, you can always view them on the link that is shown at the bottom of the screen. If you're interested in the upcoming training sessions, you may please use the same link to enroll yourself. And we are offering a certificate of participation for all our attendees. And this includes Series 1, 2, and 3, which is to be conducted over a period of October 14 to November 18. For more details on the certification, you may refer to the link that is shown on the screen. Now let's have a look at software deployment, our topic for today. Let me quickly walk you through the agenda for today's session. We will be starting with an overview of Desktop Central, then how to manage the users who are now back to Office, and to know the non-compliant applications in their endpoints. Followed by that, let's have a look at tracking updates of the business application templates and deploying a new commercial application and how to publish an application for non-admins using a feature of Desktop Central called Self-Service Portal. Then we will be having a look at the architecture behind how Desktop Central works. And let's wind up the session with few real-time scenarios and frequently asked questions with respect to software deployment. During the training, if you have any questions, please feel free to chat using the chat window. I have an expert panel team with me who are ready to answer all your questions. Now let's start with Desktop Central. What is Desktop Central? So Desktop Central is an endpoint management solution that ensures all your endpoints are secure and enables the users to use them effectively for business. A popular research analyst called Forrester defines UEM as follows: products that provide a centralized policy engine for managing and securing employee laptops and mobile devices from a single console. In unified endpoint management, you can manage endpoints in a traditional IT management fashion. This includes patch management, application management, configuration deployment, OS deployment, tools for troubleshooting, and day-to-day management activities. Similarly, endpoints can also be managed with modern management. All modern operating systems supports modern management. It supports features like geo-tracking, geo-fencing, managing store application, profile distribution to enforce the restriction, operating system reset and recovery. Can you guess the popular operating system when I say a modern operating system? Hope you got that right. Yes, it's Windows 10. Windows 10 is a classic example in which we can manage both traditional and modern management. Desktop Central can manage both the worlds, traditional and modern, from a single management console. And these are the features that you can leverage when you're using Desktop Central as a unified endpoint management solution. So as we have seen, we have the patch management, which takes care of third-party and the operating system patching for Windows, Mac, and Linux operating systems. And we have mobile device management, which will help you to manage your corporate-owned and your BYOD devices for Windows, iOS, and Android platform. Then we have modern management for Windows and Mac laptops. We also provide a solution to secure your browsers, that is Chrome, Edge, Firefox, and Explorer for Windows platform using Browser Security Plus. And we have Vulnerability Manager Plus, which will help you to assess and remediate the vulnerabilities on your managed endpoints for Windows, Mac, and Linux flavors. Then we have the Device Control Plus, which is a data leakage prevention feature for the external devices that is being used on a Windows machine. Then we have the operating system deployment, which is a hardware independent deployment where you will be able to create a single master image and deploy it to multiple machines. And we also offer the remote management and remote control using the Remote Access Plus product, along with all the Desktop Central features. So now these are the features that are offered within Desktop Central suite. Hence, with Desktop Central, as a unified endpoint management solution, you will be able to manage your desktops, laptops, mobile devices and tablets, servers, point-of-sale devices, and browsers. All this from a single management console. Desktop Central is recognized for Best Unified Management Tool 2019 as reviewed by customers in Gartner Peer Insight Customer Choice Award. We were recognized for Client Management Tool Division in Magic Quadrant for second consecutive year. We are recognized for both traditional and modern management. Now, what are the components that you need to run this application, Desktop Central? So I have listed the essential and the optional component required. The Desktop Central server is a central component that you need to be installed on a machine. Then we have the Desktop Central agent, which is also an essential component, which you should be installing on the machines which you would like to manage. There's another component called Notification Server, and this has a vital role. We will talk more about Notification Server when we get into the product. When we look at the optional components, we have Distribution Server, which serves as a repository for patches, software, scripts that you have deployed to machines in a remote site. We can create unique replication policies for each locations as per the bandwidth requirement, and we can replicate the files. Then we have Secure Gateway Server. This is useful if you're going to manage the machines that are not a part of LAN, which means the machines connecting over internet. It will be an essential add-on during this work from home scenario to manage the roaming machines. A Secure Gateway Server It's a server that bridge the agent traffic to the central server securely that connects over internet. We also have a failover server in case if you want to have a high availability, you can make use of this add-on product. And you can also use a language pack to list the web console in your preferred language. So once the components are done, we'll get into the operating systems. So we support 3 operating systems for now: Windows, Mac, as well as Linux. So please find the list of supported operating system. Primarily, the application server runs on Windows platform, but you can manage the endpoints that have Windows or Mac or Linux flavors by installing a desktop central agent on them. The functionality might vary among different operating systems. You can always reach our support if you need any details on this. So you can reach us on desktop central-support at ManageEngine.com. Since this is a client-server model application, which means you need to have an agent installed on all your endpoints in order to manage them. So to facilitate agent installation, we have 3 methods. First one is via group policy startup script in your Active Directory. You can simply download the agent component and you can push it using the script via group policy. We do have an automatic agent installation directly from the web console. You can add multiple domains and you can choose machines from that domains and you can push install the agents to them. Then we have scripts which you could use to push install the agents in bulk. You can download the agent manually from the web console and execute it directly on the machine. Once the installation is success, the agent will automatically report back to server. So we will be talking about the agent installation in greater details in our upcoming training sessions. Now, let's get into our topic. So with respect to current work from home scenario, what will be the challenges faced by an enterprise admin when it comes to a software deployment? So I have listed few frequent cases we have encountered recently. The very first thing is, as an organization, they should make sure that all the business related applications are available for an end user. And also need to ensure that the end users are not installing any prohibited application which could mess up their actual business apps. Then, to reduce the load for an IT admin by managing the multiple help desk tickets which is raised by the end users. So I will be helping you with how to handle these scenarios in the upcoming slide. Now let's get familiarized with the architecture of software deployment. Using Desktop Central, software can be deployed to your local area network and wide area network. Most important thing to deploy a software is to have a package created in first place. To store that package, Desktop Central offers 2 different types of repositories, which is a network share and a HTTP or a HTTPS repository. If the storage method chosen is network share for deployment, then the client machines will reach the share location and execute the installable files from there. You need to ensure that the share should be accessible from all the client computers. The other one is HTTP repository, which is more appropriate for deploying software to wide area network. The package which you create by uploading an installable from your local computer and the package which you create from software deployment templates will be downloaded to this HTTP or HTTPS repository. These packages from this repository will be downloaded to the client computers in local area network for deployment, and in wide area network, the distribution server will be downloading it and it will be distributing into the wide area network client machines. So this is how the software deployment works with Desktop Central. Now, why do we have two different repositories? So here comes the difference to explain it. Network share is more suited for local area network, where there is no limit to package size which you deploy. Whereas using HTTP repository, you can deploy software to local area as well as wide area network, and up to 7 gig packages can be uploaded to HTTP repository. If you want to deploy a package which is more than 7 GB to a remote site, then you can always reach our support team. We will be helping you with a workaround to achieve that. Then the network share requires setup and maintenance because it is easily vulnerable to threats if it is not maintained properly. Whereas HTTP repository doesn't require any maintenance. Now, we are getting into back to office game after the pandemic. So now let's have a look at the setup of our IT admin. So in here, we have John and his team who is responsible for managing his setup during the situation before and after the pandemic. So he is managing around 10,000 computers across the globe, and all his users are working from home, where few are connected via VPN and few of them are still communicating over internet directly via secure gateway. And the internet users includes the remote office users who are now working from home. As mentioned, there will be 3 types of users to be managed by John and his team. One is a regular VPN user who will be usually connected to corporate network via VPN even before the lockdown. Then we have users who are now using VPN because of work from home scenario, for whom we need to ensure the security policies, and also we are not sure about the bandwidth in the end user's environment. Next, we have the internet users who usually work with cloud-based application, which means over internet, and they will be reaching the Desktop Central always over internet via secure gateway. So for these kind of environment, an IT admin will be facing a lot of challenges in managing it, while enabling a work from home and to securely manage the devices that are in work from home. So these are the most common challenges that will be faced by an IT admin. I have listed it on my screen for you. Now, when the users are back to office, again, we need to ensure that the devices are back to compliance that is being defined by the organization. To handle that, we have network access control feature for the managed endpoints. So the network access control for managed endpoints is used to strengthen the network security by restricting the endpoints that does not satisfy the compliance requirement of an organization. Network access control will allow the system administrator to allow or restrict the access to organization's network for the endpoints that fails to meet the compliance settings that are defined by an administrator. Let's have a look at the workflow of network access control. Admin creates a policy that defines the compliance status in his organization. So if a system is found to be non-compliant, that is, the system's network resources are restricted or that the system is said to be quarantined, the user can remedy the problem causing the non-compliance and recheck the status manually from their end. And by default, the compliance status of all the systems are checked automatically during every refresh cycle. So we will be talking on greater detail about what an agent refresh cycle in our upcoming slides. And the compliance status of an unquarantined machine to which the compliant policies have been deployed will be checked every time when there is an IP change. That is, when the machine is connected or disconnected from the network. If the compliance have been achieved or if the agent has been uninstalled, the quarantine on those machines will be revoked. Now let's have a quick look at how this net rule can be configured. So we have a document that explains the network access control workflow. So as per the steps, let's go ahead and download the agent first. So first we need to download the trust agent, which I have already downloaded and I have extracted it. Now, the next thing is you should be executing the policy generator exe in order to update the policies. So once it is executed, you will be able to see a window like this where you need to update your policies. For example, if the torrent application is installed on a machine, or if the antivirus services is not running on a machine, then it is not a compliant computer, compliant endpoint. So this is a non-compliant endpoint. So if these conditions are met, I want to block all the network access to that particular endpoint. And then it can also intimate the end user about the change or the settings, the policies that has been imposed. So you will be able to set policies based on software, services, and custom tags, which is nothing but a registry key or a registry value check. So once you update this, you can create a new policy. So when you click on generate new policy, you will be able to see a message stating, do you want to generate deployable SIP with the policy? Make sure you provide yes. So the deployable SIP is nothing but a JSON file which will be prompted for you to save. Now, I have the JSON file created, and since I have provided yes to add that file to the zip, I will also be having the JSON file in my agent zip. Now I have the files ready, policy ready. I just have to go ahead with the deployment. So to go ahead with the deployment, we would be requiring the AD deployer exe and the agent zip. And these files should be deployed using custom script configuration of Desktop Central. Now, this is the management console of Desktop Central, where we need to go to configurations, script repository, go to add script repository and add the exe, that is taddeployer.exe. I have already added that exe, so I can go ahead and create a computer configuration. So once you have created a configuration, you need to add those two zip files as a dependency. So I have already created a configuration. Let me modify and show you the details. So I have added this as a script, whereas I have added this as a dependency files, and I'm updating the required target machine, and I can go ahead with the deployment. So when you deploy it, please ensure that you will be checking this enable login for troubleshooting option, which will give you the results under the execution status view. So once that is done, the policies has been pushed to the end user's machine. Now, you need to ensure whether the machines are compliant or not compliant. In order to test that, you have epstater.test.exe. Again, this should be first added to the script repository, which I have already added, and you need to deploy it using the custom script configuration. So in here, the custom script configuration has been created and the test.exe has been added, and this doesn't require any additional dependency file. Please make sure you check the enable login for troubleshooting and deploy the configuration. Now you will be able to see the status, the compliance status of the machine from the execution status view under the remarks. So this is how you will be pushing the network access control policies to your endpoints. And one more important thing, this functionalities of network access control will be enabled on Desktop Central Server from 10.0595 build and above. So for more details on this feature, you can check it on the URL which is shown on the screen, or you can always reach our support team where we will be helping you with it. Now, let's get into the task that needs to be handled by John and team. The first thing here is creating a report for a non-compliant business application, which is you need to know what are all the non-compliant business applications and where that application is missing on the endpoints. So in order to create this group, we need to go back to our product. So in order to create it, please go to admin, custom group, and custom group is a grouping method offered by Desktop Central where you will be able to create groups of multiple domains using the managed endpoints. Now we have three types of group, which is static, static unique, and dynamic. So static and static unique has a small variation, that is a machine in a static group can be added to another static group, but a machine in static unique group will not be added to another static unique group. The reason is the static unique group stands unique because you use static unique group as a target scope when you add a user to Desktop Central. So this will ensure that none of the technicians are having the same machines to be managed. Now moving back to our custom group, here to achieve our task, we need to create a dynamic group. So first thing, we need to ensure the applications is available in the network. So the software name not equal to Microsoft Teams. So we need to ensure the Teams and Office 365. And you need to also ensure whether they are running on an outdated version. So not equal to, you can check the latest version. Now, if a machine is not having the Teams installer or the machine is not having the latest version will be listed when I click on create group. So I have already created a group where I'll be able to see the machines which meets this criteria. Now, I have a target in which I should work on. So I need to ensure all these machines are getting the compliant application. That is a latest version of Microsoft Teams. So I could also pull this out as a report by exporting, and I could also make use of the custom group as a target when I go with the deployments. So let's go back and see how we start with the deployment. So we have around 8,000 plus predefined templates across Windows, Mac, and Linux flavors in Desktop Central software templates, which would help you to make your deployment easier. Using this, we are going to achieve our next task. So deploying a Microsoft Teams application using templates to a specific group of computers. So let's go back. Let's go to the software deployment templates. So here we have around 8,000 plus templates for Windows, Mac, and Linux. And templates are nothing but you will be able to get the details of the application, which type of installer it is, which platform it belongs to, and from where you can download the exe and the silent arguments to install and uninstall the application. Since Desktop Central support complete silent installation. In case if you couldn't find the application which you're looking for in this list, you can always raise it as a request where our team will be validating and updating to our software templates. Now, let's get into our task where we need to create a package for teams. So I have the team available on the templates, and I'll be selecting and I'll be creating a package. Whereas I have already created a package for Microsoft Teams. So I'll be selecting my Teams package, and if you want to deploy it to users, you could go with the user configuration. Here I want to deploy it to specific set of computers, hence I'm selecting the computer. Now, please provide an appropriate name, which will help you to track the configuration later. And my package is selected, and my operation type is to install. Now, this application will be getting installed on the end user machine with system account privilege by default. So you don't have to worry that the end user, the logged in user, doesn't have any privilege for application installation. So in some cases, if an application requires an impersonation, then you will be able to use the run as user, where you can select the credential of an admin, and without even sharing this credential to the end user, you will be able to complete the installation by pushing it from the web console. So once the credentials are set, now, before we get into the deployment, let's take if you're encountering another important task, that is a patch deployment or a patch Tuesday is approaching. So you want this to be done at a later time. Let's take a 2 week after that. So you can automate that from here using the scheduler settings. So if I click on install after, and if I set a date after 2 weeks and a time, now even if I go with a deploy now, this task will be initiated from the server at this particular time mentioned. Now the server is assigned with the time. What about the agent? How and when the agent will know to execute this task? So that agent side schedule is defined by the deployment policy. So you will be able to create multiple deployment policies, and you will be able to associate it with configurations that you deploy. Now, what is the deployment policy? Let me quickly help you with an example on that. So the first thing under the deployment policy is a schedule. So you can decide in which week of the month and in which day of the week you want to have the deployment done. You will also be able to specify the time interval at which the deployment should be done. So I'm going to specify an out of working window timing. Once the time has been specified, next, when should the deployment start? When the machine starts up or during the 90 minutes refresh interval of an agent, or whatever comes first. You will be able to decide that from here. So whenever this occurrence happens across this window timing, the deployment will initiate. Then we have the predefined settings. So the first one is the wake online feature. If the machines are shut down, you will be able to wake the machines and go with the deployment, provided the wake online settings on software level and BIOS level should be enabled on that particular machine. Next, we have download patches or software during subsequent refresh cycle, which means let's take my schedule starts at 5 p.m. but I have created a task early today at 8 a.m. Now I have around like 10 hours in between. So in between that time, whenever there's refresh policy happening, the software will be copied to the client. And when the window time comes, it will immediately go ahead with the installation without having to wait for the package download from the server, which will save the time and it will balance the network load. Then we have the user notification, where you will be able to notify the end user on the upcoming process, and you can also provide them an option to skip the deployment. So if you don't want the end user to be notified, so you want that to be a complete silent installation, then you can choose to uncheck it. Then finally, we have the reboot policy, where you can choose not to reboot or shut down because most of the software will not be requiring this. But in case if it is required, you could go ahead with a forced reboot, or you could specify a particular time for reboot alone, or you can very well provide that chance to the end user. So you can go ahead with a postpone interval, choose the time frame. So the end user will be listed with these interval on the bottom right corner. Based on their working hours, they can choose the time and which will be rebooting the machine at the time specified. You would be having similar settings under the shutdown as well. If it's a non-working hour deployment, once the deployment is done, you could go ahead with a forced shutdown for the effective power management. Now, likewise, you could create multiple policies based on your requirement for certain application, and you could select that from here. So I had created a policy for Microsoft Teams deployment, and I'm selecting it. Now, moving on to the target session. So which machines should be installed with this application? I have already created a custom group. So I'll be selecting all my remote office because any of these machines, remote offices will be having the computer. And I'm creating a filter where I will be able to choose my target. That is the dynamic custom group which I have created. So we also offer the other targets where you will be able to system, architecture of the machine, machine type, IP address and range of IP address, or to a specific computer, or the domain level grouping, site, OU, or a group. So now we are going to select the dynamic custom group, that is old version of MS Teams, which I have created. Now the target is ready. Next, we have the execution settings. So the retry option here is, for instance, if a package installation fails and let's take there is a dependency for that package, that a specific process has to be stopped before the installation. So now the retry on the startup will be ensuring that the application get installed even before the other process starts. By this way, we can ensure that the probability of getting the application installed is higher. And the next thing, another instance where the machine is not available or not within the network at that moment. So when that comes in, when there is a retry tried again, the machine will be getting installed with the application, which can be performed with the retry settings. But what if the machine joins the network after a month or two, where you have a latest version of Microsoft Teams, and this is outdated? So to avoid such cases of getting a machine installed with an outdated application, you can also set an expiry to a configuration. So you can mention that this configuration should be live only for 2 months. After that, it should automatically expire, which will ensure that the machines will not be getting the outdated applications. Now, the last section here is to enable the notification. So if there is a status change on the configuration, you will be notified over email if you have enabled this. Once all these things are done, you could go ahead with the deployment. So we have deploy and deploy immediately. Deploy immediately, as you see, it's an on-demand process. If I hit on deploy immediately, the package will be copied to the client and it will be getting installed on the client. On successful installation, the package will be deleted. So in order to perform this on-demand action, here comes the role of the notification server. So notification server is responsible to alert the agent about the on-demand action to be processed from the server. And if you hit on deploy, then the agent will be processing the configuration when there is a 90 minutes refresh interval of the agent occurs. So this is how the Microsoft Teams deployment task will be achieved by John and his team. Now let's get into our next task where deploying a commercial application, that is Office 365, to a specific group of computers. To achieve that, let's go back and let's go to software deployment. Again, the same drill. You need to go to the templates and check whether the Office 365 is available or not, even though it's a commercial application. Here we have Office 365, but not as like you see that Microsoft Teams, not with a URL or a silent argument. Here we have it along with the document of how to deploy it. So this document will explain you how to deploy Office 365 to the endpoints. The first step would be downloading the Office deployment tool. And you should be extracting the contents from that exe, and you should customize the XML file. And using this exe and the XML, you should download the complete package. So from the Microsoft Store, I have already gone and I have downloaded the deployment tool. So once the deployment tool has been downloaded, the next step is to extract the exe using this command line. So I'll be copying the command line, opening the command prompt as an administrator, and please ensure that you should replace this file path with the path where the deployment tool is downloaded. And after the silent argument extract, you should be updating this file path to the destination where you want the XML and exe to extract it. So in here, I should be replacing the D drive where I have the deployment tool downloaded. I have already executed the command and I have the files extracted. So I'll be getting the setup exes and the XML for Enterprise and Office 365, 32 and 64-bit. So based on my requirement, I can go ahead and customize the XML file first with respect to the respective product ID and the product key and the components of Microsoft which you want to add. So once you have this ready, that is the XML file ready, your next step should be the download of package, where we have again provided you the argument. So let's go back to the command prompt, update the argument, and this time you should be replacing the file path with the path where the setup exe and the configuration file is available, which is nothing but the MS Office. So once I have updated it and once I have downloaded it, I'll be getting a folder called Office, which will be having the cap files and the version files and the XML and the exe for deployment. Now all my files have been downloaded. My task is to go ahead with the deployment. So with respect to deployment, we can get into the web console. Since we have the package with us, we will be going with the manual deployment. So you can create manual packages for Windows as well as Mac platform. Selecting Windows, and please provide the respective name of the application in order to track it at a later period. And we support the installation of MSI and EXE. So since it's an EXE, let me select EXE and let me select the license type, which is commercial for an Office 365. Now, if you have the installation files on a share folder, so the share folder is nothing but, if you go ahead with software deployment, you will be able to see the two types of repositories which I have explained over the slides. So the share folder, you have a default path which you could make use of it, or if you have an existing path, you can use that path and even you can secure that path using the credential that you have. And the second repository which we have discussed earlier, that is the HTTP repository. This as well having a default path and you will be able to use a new location if required. Now, moving back, if you have the package on any one of a share, that is the predefined share of Desktop Central or your own share, you can update that share path and you can call that exe. So the command line is again provided by Desktop Central on this document. So you can simply copy and paste it. Now, when it comes to a share path, you need to ensure that the location is enclosed with a double quotes, because if there is a space in the share location, then the command could break. So you can add this command, add the package and go ahead with the deployment. But if you're going to deploy it to a computer that is outside your premises, then the share will not be accessible. So you can go ahead with local computer and you need to browse and add the files. So when you add these files, please ensure not to zip the folder. Please select all the required files and zip these files to be uploaded. So now I have already zipped a setup exe these files and I should be uploading that particular setup file over there. So once a file is uploaded, you could use the same command by removing the share path. Now, this command will ensure the zip is copied to agent. It will be automatically extracted on the agent and it will call the setup exe for installation, where we also have the configuration which will silently install the application. Now, along with this, you will also be able to add certain pre and post deployment checks, which is nothing but when you go ahead with an Office deployment, you want to ensure if the end user machine has enough space to proceed with the deployment. Yes, you could have the check done from here. Only if there is enough space, the deployment will go through. Also, after the deployment, if you want to ensure that certain registries are updated, or you want to update it, or you want to run a script, or you want to create a shortcut on a different location, yes, you'd be able to add it post deployment. Now, if I deploy this package, it will first go with the pre-check. If it is done, it will go with the installation. And finally, it will be going with the post deployment check. So once all three tasks is done, then it will conclude that the configuration is success. So like installation, you also have option to uninstall the application by providing respective uninstall argument under this section. And then we have the advanced settings where you will be able to update the package properties, which will list the properties under the packages view. Then we have maximum time limit for an installation. So when you deploy a package, if it is stuck in the backend for a while, or if the deployment is taking for so long to deploy because of any network latency or a machine issue, the deployment will stay only for 2 hours. After 2 hours, it will be terminated because the time limit set is 2 hours. But you can always go ahead and change it in case if there is a need to it. And you could specify the architecture of the package. And finally, the exit code. Exit code is nothing but the code that is written by the installer when there is a successful installation. So mostly all the application, when it installed successfully, it returns the code 0, which is success. So we will be displaying the status as success. In case if there is an application that has a different success code, then even there is a successful deployment, it will be returning the code as the respective application code. So we will be showing a different message instead of success. So you can go ahead and change this code to that respective success code, which will ensure that you see a success status. Now, I have already created the package for Office 365 using the pre and post check, which I would like to add, and I have it over here and I'll be selecting it for the deployment. Now the deployment package is selected and I'm going to select the policy of mine to have the installation done and next the targets. And here again, I have all the remote sites and I have created a dynamic custom group where Office 365 is not installed. But in this case, I have a challenge that Office 365 is a huge package. So when there is a VPN user who is connecting via VPN, I don't want to trouble his bandwidth because that would actually choke the bandwidth of the VPN, which in turn will disturb the other user. So I can exclude the IP range of the VPN, which will ensure only the internet user and the users who are in Office will be receiving this. So for VPN user, once he is back to Office or once he connected to internet, he'll be able to move further with his package. So once the target is selected, you could go ahead with the deployment of the package. So this is how John will be achieving his second task of deploying the application, that is the commercial application via Desktop Central. His third task is to restrict non-business application installation. So to achieve this, we have our security add-on called Application Control Plus. So this would be the UI of Application Control Plus, which comes as an add-on with Desktop Central. Now, in this view, you should be creating groups for applications. So you could create application groups based on vendor, product name, verified executable, file hash, folder path as well. So once you create the application groups as whitelisted groups and blacklisted groups, now you have the group ready. You need to enforce to the endpoints that you manage. So if you click on policy deployment, you will be able to select the group of machine where you want to enforce these groups. So again, the target here is custom group. You could select the all computers group and you can add all your whitelisted and blacklisted applications grouping which you have created. Now, once this policy is enforced, only the whitelisted applications will be able to be used by the end users. Even though they have the other applications, since it is blacklisted by the admin, they will not be able to use it. Now the question is, what if they install a new application? So apart from blacklist and whitelist, we have another thing called gray list. So the newly installed application will be listed under the gray list if you have selected the strict mode. So only once the Desktop Central admin review it and approve it, the end user will be able to use that application, which is under the gray list. So if you want to know more about this application control plus add-on, or we also have it as a standalone product, you can reach our support team or you can reach the chat expert who are currently available with us. So the next task for is help users install application themselves. So John's receiving a lot of help desk ticket to install various business application. How this can be minimized? So this can be minimized using a feature called self-service portal of Desktop Central. So let me go back to the web console. Under software deployment, you will be able to see an option called self-service portal, where you will publish the packages for users and computers. So this is supported for Windows and Mac. Again, my target is a custom group. I can select the required target. I can select package that I require and I can publish. Now, once it is published, as an end user, where can I see these packages? I can go to self-service portal settings and I can enable the agent tray, desktop shortcut or a start menu. So with agent tray, I will be able to launch it from here. So the self-service portal will look something like this. So with a click of a button, the end user will be able to install the application here. So in here, you're also seeing an option called request. So the reason why we have request is when you go to self-service portal, you will be able to see two criteria. Install without approval, requires approval. So if I add something under the approval section and publish it, then it will show me request instead of install. So this sectioning is because of the Service Desk Plus add-on, which I have with my product. So Service Desk Plus is nothing but an ITSM tool offered by ManageEngine itself. So once you have integrated the tool, you will be able to see the request option. And if I click on request, I'll be prompted with an option to add my request detail and why I would be requiring this application. So once the request is updated, and if I click on send request, this request will be created as a ticket on Service Desk Plus. And when the Service Desk Plus admin approves it, the request will be processed by the Desktop Central server. And if the status is approved, then it will be automatically installed on the client computers. So this is how, using the self-service portal, you will be able to manage the help desk request. And now we have covered the task section. Now let's get into the common error messages that will be encountered frequently during the software deployment. So first is the system cannot find the path specified or the access denied. So which is nothing but this occurs mostly when you have a network share based deployment. The reason is from the agent machine, the share might not be reachable or it doesn't have the credential to access share. So in this case, either you need to provide the accessibility or you can go with the HTTPS method to deploy the package. The next is no silent switch or invalid silent switch error, which is nothing but, as I mentioned, the package which you're going to manually create requires a proper silent argument since we support the silent installation. So if you don't have the silent argument, you could very well go ahead with the respective vendor to check the argument details, or you could go ahead to the package. So let's take here, I have the setup exe. So if I don't have the details for the setup exe, then I can check if that exe is having anything inbuilt. So for this exe, I could see few silent arguments from the help command. So this help command as well will help you with the possible silent switches. Else, the best solution is to reach the respective vendor for the argument. Now, let's have a quick look at the architecture of Desktop Central. So Desktop Central is a client-server model application and an on-premise solution. So using Desktop Central, you will be able to manage the users who are roaming over internet, and you will also be able to manage the remote sites. So the remote sites can be managed either directly connecting to Desktop Central, or if the managed endpoints on the remote site is higher, we recommend you to go with the distribution server, which is used to throttle the bandwidth of data traffic between the central server and the remote location. So we can choose to have the machines communicate directly with Desktop Central or via distribution server through secure gateway server. So now you will be able to manage all these endpoints communication to be routed securely to Desktop Central through the component called Secure Gateway. Desktop Central integrates with Active Directory, which will help you to fetch the AD objects for agent installation and AD reports, and you can also deploy a patch or software targeting the Active Directory group, that is OU or a security group. And even if you have a closed network, we still can use Desktop Central. Desktop Central is also available as an AWS marketplace and in Azure platform. In case you're looking to host the Desktop Central in any one of the cloud platform, you can make use of AWS or Azure. Desktop Central is now available as a cloud solution as well. You may sign up for a free trial using the link that is mentioned on the bottom of the screen. Now let's have a look at the refresh interval of an agent, which we were seeing on the previous slide. So Desktop Central can scale from small as large network. That can be achieved using this 90 minutes refresh policy. So every agent with Desktop Central server will connect once in 90 minutes. Even if you have a 90 machines, 900 or even 9,000 machines for that matter, this 90 minutes will be equally distributed among those agents. And each agent will be provided a specific time to talk with server. Now the server has the intelligence to assign a time to each client to avoid the network congestion or the downloads that could actually eat up all your bandwidth. So that the 90 minutes refresh policy is designed in such a way that will split the load evenly and not to cause any damage to your network. This is how the refresh interval works. And with respect to the ports that are used by Desktop Central, the Desktop Central server primarily runs on the two ports, that is the web server port 8383, which is HTTPS, and 8020, which is HTTP. And we have TCP port 8027, which is a notification port, that is a notification server, and it is responsible for all the on-demand actions like an asset scan or a path scan or an immediate deployment that you're going to initiate. Apart from this, we also have other optional ports that you have to open. The important ports are listed to you on the screen. You can keep the respective ports open as per your requirement. So for more details on the port, you can always reach the website which is shown at the bottom of the screen. Okay, so far we have discussed on the use cases of software deployment with respect to real-time scenarios. So if you guys come across any questions, you can feel free to use the chat option. Our expert team available here will answer your questions. So let us jump to our next session, which would be in the scenarios and the solution with respect to software deployment. So we'll quickly have a look at scenario 1. Is there a way to base install of dependency app? I have an app that needs a database install first. Yes, of course you could do it. Let me go to the web console. Under software deployment, I want an application to be installed, which requires a base installation of a DB. So I'm selecting both the details and I'm going with the deployment. Now, I need to ensure my DB is installed first. So I need to select the DB and then the required application, and then I can go ahead with the deployment. So this will be installed first, followed by the app which I would like to install. So this is how the first scenario can be attained. The second scenario is I have a third-party application that does not support silent installation. How can I install it? So to overcome this particular case, let's take there is a third-party or a in-house application where you don't have a silent argument. Then you can go ahead and allow this option. So allow user interaction with the installation or uninstallation window. So instead of the window running in backend, the end user will be prompted with the message, that is the prompted with the installation window. He could proceed with the installation from there. Or you can use an AutoIt tool to create a script of the installation, and you could add that script along with the package for the deployment. So using any one of this method, the second scenario could be achieved. The third scenario here is I have a set of applications including MS Office, CRM deployed for my sales team. I want all new salespeople to have these applications installed on their computer automatically. How can I do this? To achieve this, let's take I'm adding multiple application and I'm choosing my target here as an OU. Let's take an OU or a group. So whenever a new machine is added to this OU or a group, I want this to be automatically installed with this package. So in order to achieve this, please go to configurations, configuration settings, where I have an option that says when a computer or a user is added to an OU or a group, apply configurations during a startup, logon, or a refresh interval. So once this is enabled, whenever a new computer is added to my target along with the agent installed, I will be able to make sure the applications installed automatically to that endpoints. Let's get into the fourth scenario. I tried to deploy a business app to a computer, but it failed. Is there a way to troubleshoot it? Yes, you will be able to troubleshoot it. So let's take an example of an MSI app. So if I go to software deployment, I'm going to create a package for an MSI application. So when I create the package, I'll be having an extra option under advanced setting, that is enable login for troubleshooting. So let's take, I'm going to install Skype, which repeatedly fails, and I'm enabling this option and I'm uploading the Skype package. Now, once after enabling this option, if I deploy it to a machine, then I will be able to see a dedicated file created for Skype in the agent logs folder under C program files 86 desktop central agent logs. So this will explain me the step-by-step details of why there is a failure. So using this, you could achieve that particular scenario. Scenario 5, when I create a package using template, what happens if a new version of application is released? So to handle this case, we have a feature called auto update template. So if you go to auto update template, if you click on enable, and if you select the templates that you have created from the packages that you have created from templates and you have added, whenever there is a new version of that application comes in, you don't have to go and create the package again. Desktop Central will automatically create the packages for that template application. And as an administrator, you will be able to see all the version packages on the package view, where as an end user, that is on self-service portal, the end users will able to see the latest version alone. So the old will be replaced, the latest will be placed on the self-service, making sure the admin have all the versions and the end user have the latest version for installation. Now our sixth scenario, can we perform a Windows 7 to Windows 10 upgrade using Desktop Central software deployment? Yes, of course you could do it. So we'll go back to the same drill. Go to the templates and search for the Windows 10. So you have a template for Windows 10, which will explain you the steps of how you can go ahead with the upgrade from 7 to 10. So it helps you with the system requirements of a Windows 7 machine, the minimum requirements, and the steps to upgrade. So to download an ISO, we have provided the link from where you could download an ISO. Once the ISO is downloaded, you will be extracting that ISO to get the setup exe files, and you should be creating a manual package like we did for MS Office 365. Once the package is created, please ensure you update the arguments which is available on the document. So we provide options to update the key along with the installation, or you could go ahead with an installation without a key. So using this manual package creation method of setup files, you will be able to deploy the package to Windows 7 machine to upgrade it to Windows 10. In case if you encounter any issues during this deployment, the help article is readily available very well below the same document. So this will explain you the most possible error codes and the cause of the error code and the resolution to resolve that as well. You could make use of this for a quick troubleshooting. So we are into our last section now, that is the quick QA session about the software deployment. So first question, what if I don't have a self-service portal link on the menu? How can I find it? So if you don't see the self-service portal, which means you're running a professional edition of Desktop Central. So you could go to the license, click on it and see which license type you're running, because self-service portal is available only on UEM and the Enterprise edition of Desktop Central. So my second question here is, how do you monitor the status of deployment? Like how many workstations have installed versus how many are remaining or failed. So in order to check the status, you have View Configuration, where I can go ahead, click on it to see the configuration detail, who deployed the configuration, when it is deployed, to which machine it is deployed, and what is the package I have included for the deployment, and what is the status of the deployment. Is that a success or a failure? If you have added multiple machines as a target, the package details, the installation details for multiple machines will be listed over here. And one more added advantage of this part is you have an option to save it as a template. So let's take you're creating a baseline configuration with multiple packages included, and you don't want to search that package, that configuration from a list of hundreds on a later time. So you could simply click on Save as Template, which will be saving this as under Configuration Template section. So in here, if you go to User Defined, you will be able to find the software deployment template. So you could simply create a configuration from here, which will load it along with all the details which you have updated earlier, and the target will be empty where you can provide your new target and go ahead with the deployment. So this is where you will be able to see the status of the deployment. Third question is, if you're using a secure gateway server in our setup, do the external clients still need HTTP portal for a software, or can they go directly to network share via secure gateway? So whenever a machine is communicating over internet, it is not wise to have the network share updated as a repository, because first thing, exposing the network share is vulnerable to the network. Second thing, the agent which is on the internet will not be able to reach the share on the network, which will be resulting in failure. The fourth question is, if I want my software package to be replicated to a remote office, how do I achieve it? So the best way to have the replication for a remote office is, let's take one of the package, and I want this to be updated only to a particular remote site. In this case, or a machine on a particular remote site. In this case, it is not wise to select your domain, because selecting your domain will be replicating this particular package to all the remote offices. So if you want to deploy it to machines on particular remote site, then the top level target should be selected as a respective remote site. And you can filter it and you could select your defined target over here. So this would be the best method of replication in order to avoid the network congestion. Your fifth question here is, when multiple software are deployed in sequence, if the first package fail, does it attempt to continue? How is the notification sent back? If the first package fails, then the deployment would be called off. But in order to send you the notification, we have the enable notification section, where you will be able to provide your email ID to get the alerts. So even before you update it here, you need to ensure that under admin, under mail server settings, you have configured your mail server. So only if you have a proper mail server configuration, you will be able to get the alerts to the email which you have provided in the enable notification section. Sixth question, if you configure a schedule and the computer is not online at the time of schedule, will it be in queue to install when the computer comes online? So this will not be sticking to a queue. Instead, it will be taking the next available schedule and it will be deploying the configuration on the next available schedule which you have configured on the deployment policy. Question 7. We have 11 technician license on Service Desk Plus, and we have only one technician license on Desktop Central. Is it possible to set self-service portal with only one technician license on Desktop Central? The answer is yes, because self-service portal will be enabled when you integrate Desktop Central with Service Desk Plus. That is the self-service portal sectioning. And to integrate Desktop Service Desk Plus, you would only require one technician in common. So this would be a yes for the question. So here we have come to the end of today's training. Hope this training session was useful. So please to share your feedbacks and rate us on a scale of 1 to 5, where 5 means the best. And stay tuned for our next training schedule, which is to be conducted on October 28th for asset management. And please do spread a word if you guys like this training session. If you would like to schedule a personalized demonstration with one of our product expert online, then you could leave your email IDs to our chat panel, or you could leave your request to the URL which is shown at the bottom of the screen. Thank you so much once again for all your presence and patience throughout the session. Have a nice day ahead.